Hey, you found us. Here we go. Let's answer some questions. Roger, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. It's his first time. All right. How far should you bend over in ballistics?
Well, I guess let's take the snatch just as an example. It's going to vary. It's going to depend on how much vertical versus horizontal projection you need. So go ahead and bend over for me. Not the first time.
Okay. Cue the goat screen.
So shift back a bit. That maybe a little lower. That's probably his swing. Come up just a tiny bit higher. That's probably his snatch. There's going to be, you can come up now. There's a difference in the amount of horizontal and vertical power that you need for each. Some people say they want the same bend in both. We just don't agree with that. If you want the same bend in both, if you need it for some reason, and I'll talk a little bit about some other factors, totally cool. Not saying it's wrong, just from an efficiency standpoint, it usually seems to be wasted to get as deep in your bend for a swing as it is for your snatch, so we don't do it. So as far as one of the main things that will dictate how far you will and can bend is your center of mass. So go ahead and stand in front of the camera. So that's kind of an imaginary point. It's a real point, I guess, if you were dead and you were weighing him. So somewhere underneath his belly button usually, okay? So right about there probably would be his theoretical center of mass when he's standing or when he's lying on a table like he's a cadaver.
Why are you wishing me dead?
Well, I'm not. I'm just saying that's how they calculated this stuff.
Mark this down, so if I turn up missing, you know where to start.
Anyway, so a general rule, as you get more mass in one direction, the center will actually change toward the added mass. So if you look at us next to each other, he's got longer legs than I do. I've got more bulk in my torso. You notice he's a little more straight up and down, and I'm a little wider relative to my waist and my legs. So I have more more mass in my upper body than he does. So his center of mass is going to be a little bit lower than mine, which is going to make it really good, really easy for him to bend over a bit farther. Plus he's got those long legs. So he's going to get a really deep, he'll be able to get a really deep bend. I'm not going to be able to do that. If I do that, because I have more mass, if we define balance as keeping your center of mass over your base of support, so my base of support's like this imaginary circle here. If I bend and my torso is both higher and my center of mass is higher, it is going to come closer to falling outside of the circle. The more I bend over, that is going to put me off balance. My body's not going to want to do that. So I will bend over less than you will because I have shorter legs and I've got more mass in my torso. Those are some general rules. For most people though, about 45 degrees is cool. Go ahead and turn the side for me and bend all the way over. So a lot of, not quite that far,
okay.
But a lot of people want this. And people are like, oh, that's great. I think that's too much. Some people are like, oh, that's 90 degrees. It's not 90 degrees, not at the joint. That's extreme.
It's probably more, right, at the joint, because it's where the flexion.
Yeah. So you need to have a tremendous amount of available range of motion in the joint that most people don't have. And the second he drops down lower, this goes down lower than that, he has to load his back to get into his hip. So that's just a position we want to avoid. Usually about 45 degrees will do the trick.
Boom, legit. All right, question number 2. What does turning your thumb in or out do in regards to the snatch?
So what we're really looking for is available space. So let's go for what a lot of people do. What a lot of people do with the snatch is stick your arm out for me. So if you look, if the arm falls straight down, it hits his leg. So he has to move. You have to move one way or the other. Now, the degree to which he has to move is going to be dependent upon how far,
like I told you,
how far his shoulders. So let's say his torso is wider. Now suddenly his arm falls here. Okay. So now he has an extra. This would be a lot of space, but he's got more distance that he needs to cover in. So he can work with a combined internal rotation, make a fist, it's easier to see. So if you're looking at getting this point here, okay,
Okay.
You're looking about getting that point there. As he internally rotates, you can see, go ahead and rotate, how it comes off of the, how it even comes off the stick a little bit. As he internally rotates, he starts to make up space. That, in conjunction with the motion from the hip, motion from the spine, he now can find the backswing comfortably and not worry about hitting himself. So rotating in will give you a little more space for your snatch if you need it. Now, if you look at the distance, this, and then go ahead and go all the way through like you're going down with the internally rotated thumb, that covers more distance, okay, than the other alternative. So a lot of people will call that thumb to bum, okay? So the other way we do it is we like to call it pinky to stinky. So that's where the pinky comes in this way, okay? So it's just clearing the knee, still getting the handle in between the legs for clearance. He's not internally rotating the shoulder, maybe a little bit of external rotation, but not much. The idea is that he's just coming right inside the leg, giving the bell just enough clearance, the handle just enough clearance to get the bell through. Less distance covered. Now, when we're looking at force production, one of the factors we need to consider is distance. So if you have the same force, same speed, or the greater distance, you're going to be able to create more force. So long story short, thumb down will help you with more power if you need to create that space because you're using more distance.
Right.
Assuming that as you go down, you're not doing a lot of that. Okay. So if you do a lot of that or a lot of that, then you're going to need to twist out of that hole to then generate force. Okay. So assuming that the hips stay relatively neutral, that's going to give you more power. The other one's going to give you more efficiency. That will also be a little friendlier on your grip. Okay. As you're coming down with the thumb down, that will challenge your grip more. Okay. That will challenge your grip less.
Perfect. Question number 3. At what point should I start my punch on my snatch?
So one of the general rules for ballistics that require you to reposition the bell. So if you let's go ahead and do a swing. You can either do one or just go through the motion. You're not doing much redirecting of the bell. Okay, you're going through. You're projecting the power through your legs. You are maintaining control of it, but there's not any real redirection. Okay, now as you go to your clean, now we have a diagonal pattern that has to go across his body. So you see the diagonal comes from in between the leg across to the rack position. He's got to redirect that. Go ahead and take a little break. You start breathing heavy into the mic. So he's going to need to redirect that. And the example we'll go over the snatch, but in this case with the clean, he's going to want to move the bell when it's essentially weightless.
Right.
Now, after he's generated sufficient force with his legs, generally above this level, okay? Generally above this level, the bell is already floating. As soon as it gets above that level, he can start redirecting it. If he has the proper grip, it's just going to roll out into the proper position for the clean. Now, snatch is going to be a similar pathway. It will still be a diagonal. It will be a longer vertical diagonal. Okay, he's going to go higher. Now, it is going to land more center, so he doesn't need to go as far out. But the same basic rules are going to apply. So leg drive. Yep. Once the leg drive is complete and the bell floats up on its own past the level of the waist, he's going to be able
I tried to do that in slow motion for us.
That doesn't look good. So go ahead and drop the bell.
I got to redeem myself. Shit.
So
I was like, can I do this in slow motion?
that's what happens. Yeah, that's what happens when you compromise your power.
I'll do that in post.
Lesson learned. So let's go ahead and keep the arm in contact with the body. So leg drive, pop. Now the bell, this is staying close. So the bell's going to start to float up on its own. Now, as soon as it gets above this level, if it has enough force, he can potentially punch up here. Now that is acceptable, One thing we need to consider though is if the force from his legs is bringing the bell up to here, okay, then this may be more efficient. That he may not need to punch before this. You know, he's adding the motion from here, from the legs to the arm. He's adding those two together. But if he does it too soon, he's using muscle power that he doesn't need to use. So it may be better to wait until the bell gets to right about here. And if you turn to the side, you can see now his arm is basically parallel with his shoulder. Now he can punch. This is also going to be dependent upon the size of your arms and your forearms. Some people may need to punch a lot sooner. You know, if he's got giant forearms, then waiting till he gets here, the bell's pretty much already overhead. But as long as the bell is weightless, you're good. You're good any point from here. It's going to happen. It's going to happen automatically. As soon as the arm wants to come away from the body, though, is when I like to do it, and that's going to be right about here for me. Okay. If you do this and you don't have enough force from your legs, what you're essentially doing, if you're starting your punch from here, you're doing a press, and that over time is going to be hard on your shoulder. It might wear you out. So that happens. You can get injured. We don't want that.
Don't get injured. All right, that's it. Hey, if you want your questions answered and you want to see me do more kettlebell exercises in slow motion without using slow motion, send us a comment, put it below, put it in the DM, all this other shit, and see you next time. Stay strong.